economics deals with scarcity, the allocation of scarce resources. That's what the whole study of the field is. How do we make decisions when there's unlimited demand and only a limited supply?
Yeah.
And that demand is also driven by a lot of different things that don't always have rational reasons. He goes into some of that, but with that understanding, to me, economics is a subset of psychology because it's dealing with the scarcity problem of the mind and fulfilling wants. And so I'm like, okay, it is almost like a subsection of that. It's not always treated as that. More recently it has been, but not fully as a subset. It's just like,
it's
we have
still not. It's still not like a full subset.
Yeah, it's like this,
still an adjacent.
Yeah,
you know,
adjacent,
tangent. Yeah,
like we'll acknowledge some of those ideas, but we're not going to completely look at it.
All right, we are back at it.
Back at it again. Let me just pull up my notes on constants right now.
You really should.
That's how I stay organized, you know?
Like everyone should stay organized.
Yeah, you got to organize that mind so you can monetize that mind. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, so many thoughts just are really good ideas that just kind of get lost to time and just to like distractions.
Yeah, dude.
It's like if you're not actually writing this stuff down, you are losing. Some people might say $1 billion in a $30 textbook, right?
I mean, some people might say that.
Some people might say that.
And you know, I think we're going to talk about the person that might say that a little bit later.
Who's that?
Who is that? That's Sir Charlie Munger.
That's right.
R.I.P.
Yeah.
R.I.p.
Most people don't even know who it is, like who he is, but yeah, he's passed away now.
But before we get into that, a little update on Constance. Now. And what we have coming up in the next couple releases.
Yeah, reimagining what it looks like to sell stuff online.
Yeah.
Reimagining what it looks like to give people that experience that you can give people in stores, right? But with your digital products.
Yeah.
So doing all that fun stuff, you know, sprucing up some of the social badges, making sure that that's super relevant, right? When you're sharing somebody like a link in bio, that they can know all the other platforms to follow you on.
Yeah.
And just making sure it's like all in one spot. Because, you know, we want to be better than some of these other platforms that are out there.
Yeah, you know, I was at this this new building. I say new building, but there's
new to you.
It's like this like whole studio. I believe they're called Pop Solutions. And they
that startup company?
Yeah, and they are basically, it's like a creative studio here in Detroit, and they have a whole bunch of different rooms for producing different types of content, starting different businesses, presenting, hosting events. And I was talking with another guy that works out of there that's in charge of their technology. Yeah. Just about digital products, and it was so refreshing because he seemed to just get it. We were talking with some of the older guys there, and it was funny. At one time, he was like, it might be a generational gap. And the reason why he was saying that is because we kept talking about digital products, and they kept steering it towards these like difficult, need to implement a million different things businesses. And we're like, it's not that complicated. The specific example was we were looking at a use case where we can connect to Africa, because Africa is expected to boom over the next couple decades. They have a very young population. They have a lot of people there.
They're already on mobile, right?
Yeah, a lot of the infrastructure is already on mobile. They didn't really have the desktop phase, and so people are expecting that with the connectivity with social media, that there's going to be more and more exposure to people there that otherwise didn't have that opportunity to learn, but then also to showcase what they know, because there's a lot of talent over there.
Yeah.
And so we were talking about how to amplify that connection, and the older people in the conversation were like, we need to call our political connects and establish these trade routes so that way people can do blah 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 blah. And we're like, that makes sense, that's good, but that sounds like a decades-long plan.
Yeah.
Me and the other guy, the tech guy, were like, digital products are in right now because they're very low cost and high margin. And not everyone will pop off, but when the right one does, or if you find the right person, there's a real connection there.
Yeah.
And that's the stuff that sets the infrastructure for bigger deals, bigger moves. And so that's what Constance is really there for, is to give people opportunities to get into the world of business, earn on their own, follow their passions, invest in their interests, because interest compounds. And I think that
They do.
Mr. Munger would agree with that.
He would, and that's another thing. It's just like, don't wait to start. It's very easy.
Yeah.
It doesn't have to be a whole business. Like, even though we say it's a business, it is a business.
Yeah.
You could just sell a $3 PDF file. You could sell an MP3 file. Or
Well, you're not
you
just
know,
selling
like,
that, though. You're selling the knowledge inside of your head, which
Well,
is
sure.
valuable. Like,
Sure.
that stuff is important, especially if it can result in a consistent outcome that's beneficial to whoever has that knowledge. That's actually
Right.
the premise, I would say, for gainful employment, is that somebody employs you because they think that you have the knowledge to execute a job. If that knowledge is more niche, then you get paid more money, especially if it's valuable.
Yeah, specialized. Yeah.
Yeah, if you have knowledge if you don't really have knowledge that's necessary, it's more just about execution, there's still a place. You have to know how to maybe work their specific system. But it's I think employment is still a reflection of what you know. Now what you know can work more for you. So I know there's a lot of people that are getting laid off, that are scared about getting laid off. And I think that you should be thinking about this. And if not you directly, share it with a friend. If there's a friend who you're like, hey man, I know that you just lost their job, you might be thinking of what to do. And if you think this person might just be smart on something, send it over to them.
Yeah, everyone's got something they're passionate about.
Everyone has an offer.
Yes.
Everyone has an offer that they can make. But
Exactly.
with all that being said, why don't we jump into the conversation of the day around Mr. Charlie Munger.
The right hand to the esteemed Buffett.
Yes. The
Which-
vice chair of
Berkshire Hathaway.
Berkshire.
Most people don't realize that they are like a team. I mean, obviously, if you're in the economic world or like you're in the world of finance, you probably should know that.
Yeah.
But I feel like a lot of people in my circles don't even know the name when I bring it up.
Like the average person doesn't know
Yeah,
who
they're
Charlie
just like,
Munger
who's
is.
Charlie Munger?
Yeah.
And I say Warren Buffett, they go, oh yeah, Warren Buffett.
I know that guy, rich old guy. It's
Yeah.
like, yes, this is another rich old guy.
Yeah.
But yeah, Charlie Munger is like a business person's business person. He's the guy that a lot of people point to, a lot of the esteemed people
Right.
point to in terms of looking at as a reference point, understanding, and I think he's an interesting personality. I would love to get into him and talk a little bit about maybe his background at a high level. He lived for 99 years. He was 34 days away from his 100th birthday.
Yeah.
And
Very accomplished.
he just a wealth of experience and a wealth of knowledge.
A wealth of money.
And a wealth of money, right? But but there's so much to cover. Where my mind was at, because I've read his Poor Charlie's Almanac, and I studied finance and economics, although
Right.
I don't think that I didn't learn about him while I was studying there.
Sure.
And a lot of his lessons, I think, went under the radar. So while I studied economics, finance, that just kind of sparked my interest, but it wasn't where a lot of my knowledge came from. A lot of it was just studying Charlie Munger, his insights, watching how he moves, how him and Warren Buffett move, and soaking up game that way.
Yeah. Yeah, I found that he was very interested in like the psychology of things, and that gives it a little bit of an interesting twist.
Yeah.
When you talk about like, okay, when you're making trades or you want to buy or merge acquisitions, like all the stuff you do in the financial markets, how do people think about that? What are the ripple effects when a decision is made? Maybe to like acquire a company. What does the average person think? How do they portray that? The same way that people do like, what do you call them? Like popularity polls or like the president. It's like, oh, like how, what's his approval rating? That's what it is. Like their approval ratings. I feel like he kind of put that mindset in like the financial markets of like, okay, I need to be able to like figure out if I make this move, what's my approval rating going to be for this move, and then back his way into like what's the best thing he can do at the time.
Yeah, he's very well. Let's talk a little bit about him. Lay the scope for people that don't know about him, and then we can get into a little bit of his thoughts on psychology.
First one, where was he born?
Humans. He was born in Omaha, Nebraska.
Let's go. I was also born in Omaha, Nebraska.
Wow. And Warren Buffett was also born in
exactly.
Omaha, Nebraska.
Represent.
Yeah, that's the I forgot about that.
I was born near Omaha.
But you like the
close
real
enough.
The real people in Omaha are like, bro, don't claim Omaha if you weren't born here, bro. You're not from here, bro.
Yeah.
You're from outside.
I was, I was as close as you can get without actually being from Omaha, but I'm going to count as Omaha, Nebraska. Yeah, so represent.
Yeah, man. So, he was born in Omaha, January 1st, 1924, to his parents, Florence and Alfred. His dad was a lawyer.
And his grandfather was a lawyer, I believe. Yes.
And his father went to Harvard Law, which Charlie would eventually go to.
Yeah.
As a teen, he worked at Buffett and Sons. It was a grocery store.
Yeah.
At this time, I don't think he knew Warren Buffett, maybe like in passing, but I don't think they weren't.
It was like Buffett's like grandfather or someone who ran the grocery store.
Yeah, but that's where he was first introduced to business. That's where he learned to work with people, take inventory, manage cash, show up, do all these different things that kind of got him into the exposure of business.
Yep.
And it's kind of poetic because he would go on to make oodles of money and get very, very wealthy, and become very influential in the world of business with the grandson of his first employer.
Yeah.
So after that, he eventually enrolled at the University of Michigan, and true to a lot of the people on this Founders Drive podcast, he dropped out relatively quickly, although for different reasons.
I was gonna say, I don't think that was because I don't think he was like, oh yeah, this isn't for me. I think if he got the opportunity, he would have stayed.
Yeah.
But unfortunately, the Nazis invaded.
Yes, and so he ended up going to the war. But he was studying mathematics.
Yep.
And then he dropped out. He took the general assessment test and scored very highly, and they eventually said, hey, we're going to put you out at Caltech, where we want you to study meteorology.
And it's wild.
Yeah.
The fact that he was resigned to a base in Alaska and then said, yeah, we're going to have you go to Caltech to study this meteorology to help the government. Like, I think he was doing, like, helping people, like, land planes and stuff like that.
Okay. Yeah, and I hadn't really, like, gone down that rabbit hole, so that's a fun fact.
Yeah, he was just like helping like the military land the planes, and so this actually goes into one of the first things that becomes like a lifelong thing for him, for me at least, which was the like always invert. He learned that in college, right, going through calculus and these other differential equations like invert, and he applies that in his own way in this military job. And when he says invert, really what he's talking about is like work your way from the solution back to the like the problem that you're trying to solve.
Yeah, and specifically, if I wanted to screw this up.
Yeah, so for instance, in this military job, his job was to make sure that planes could land safely. And so his question that he asked at Caltech was, well, what's the easiest way to kill a pilot?
Yeah.
And that was his question. And so he said, okay, if the two ways to kill a pilot are they can't land because of an ice storm, or they have to go around too far, and they don't have enough gas to land, those are the two easiest ways I'm going to kill a pilot. So I'm going to avoid those in my job.
Yeah.
And that's how he actually formed his path towards making the decisions in that role.
It's really interesting because just very broadly, I've heard him say multiple times, I'm not trying to be smart. We're not trying to be these intellectual geniuses. We're just trying not to be stupid.
Consistently not be stupid.
And that's hard in and of itself. Especially when you try it. It's like, it's really hard to not be dumb as a person. And being able to like come up with these different mental models, which is a big part of the way that he labels this. It's like a mental models, like these different mental models operate as like a lattice work of different ways to approach problems and make decisions, especially with limited information. And so, yeah, always inverting is a big one there that I think will be or that I think is very, very, very relevant. Specifically, like with the always inverting, and that can apply to so many different things. Business, it's like, okay, what's the number one way to go out of business?
Exactly.
And don't do that.
Start there, and then just what famously said, I'd love to know where I'm going to die, because then I would just avoid that place. Which is like, it works. It's simple and it works
right there. So after he got shipped out to California, and that he would call that place his home base for a long time, although he would shuttle around. He ended up taking like a number of different classes and enrolling in Harvard Law, where he got his Juris Doctorate. And
That was a little bit interesting, though, I thought.
a little bit of a side quest.
Not a side quest, but the way that he was able to do that.
Okay.
Most people coming from the pedigree that he has, his grandfather was a Harvard lawyer, his father was a Harvard lawyer, and so when he went to apply to Harvard, he didn't have an undergraduate degree because he went to the war.
Right.
And so what would most people do in that scenario when the dean of the school is like, listen, you don't have an undergraduate degree, we don't want to let you into Harvard to become a lawyer? Most people would be like, okay, like I can't get in then.
Yeah, but he had
connections.
He had his connects. I was gonna say most people aren't in his position where you have,
right,
you know, a multiple
generation
alumni trace there. But nonetheless, that's how the world works. I would also say that Warren Buffett and Charlie Munger they don't hide that they were very privileged in certain respects, in terms of time, in terms of opportunity, in terms of like the ability to in circumstance.
I would agree with that. I also think in all of these discussions, when we talk about a founder, they're going to want to give the advice that they were missing. And so if they are, let's say at like level 2 when they start, they may not give you the advice to get you from level 0 to 1 or 1 to 2. They might start on level 2 and then say, okay, this is what got me from 2 to 4, or, you know, whatever it is. So it's just something to note, right? That some people, when you ask them for their advice, they're going to give you advice that worked for them.
Sometimes, yeah.
Right.
Sometimes,
right.
yeah.
Right.
I think it's one of those things to filter and pay attention to
Exactly.
and say, okay, is this something that's actually relevant to somebody in my position, or is it
unique to his situation?
Yeah.
100%. Yep.
Add that to the mental model list.
Yes.
Right.
Need many mental models.
So during his time in the army and school, he learned a lot. He played a lot of cards, and he learned the skill of basically patience, and then when you see an opportunity, going all in. He said, I think there was an actual quote here that he actually had here, where it was, what you have to learn is to fold early when the odds are against you, or if you have a big edge, back it heavily, because you don't get a big edge often. Opportunity comes, but it doesn't come often, so seize it when it does come. And that's a big theme with Warren Buffett, Charlie Munger, and the Berkshire philosophy.
Yeah.
Very patient.
Very patient.
Very researched, and when they make a move, they go all in.
All in, yep. Yeah.
Not like literally all in, because they always keep some reserves, but they make big bets whenever they see an opportunity. And if they don't see anything, they're very comfortable not moving
They
at all.
train with a lot of conviction.
Yeah.
A lot of conviction and like research, like you were saying.
Yeah, like a theme that will come up when we revisit him and Warren Buffett over and over again is they're not big into diversification. They're like, diversification just means that you don't know what you're doing and you're trying to spread the bets. And I think to a degree that's true. I'll give a personal anecdote. Even somebody that's, again, I study this stuff, but that's very different than like actually doing
Putting your money up.
Yeah. So when I started my actual portfolio, I had like 30 plus companies. Like exactly what he was
trying to be diversified. Yeah,
exactly what he said not to. It's just everything seems like, oh, I don't want to miss out on that opportunity. I don't want to miss out on that opportunity. And that's just the way that I navigated. But very quickly I realized, oh, I can't keep track of all of this.
Yeah, there's news happening every day for every company.
And it's so much.
30 companies, you're spending all day on the news cycle.
Yeah, and so I ended up after some time dropping it down to less than 10, and then usually then it's around 5, and I usually kind of hang out around there just to make sure that I know who I'm investing in. Yeah. It's like a company of people. That's what a lot of times people forget. It's like we just see the candlestick graphs and like the charts, and we try to interpret everything from there, but there are people driving the decisions. All of those are just an indicator of the decisions that the people made. Right. And so if you can understand the people and actually understand what they're doing, their incentives, and their decision making and all of that, then you'll actually get a better read than just looking at the proxies, which are the graphs, and don't show that there are actual people behind the decisions. And there's actually way more context to what the company of people are actually doing, how they're organized, etc. So that whole idea of like diversification and really knowing about the decisions that you're making is a theme that is not talked about enough. And I think it also sets up the groundwork for the discussion, and where we can actually like take just this whole idea on the psychology of misjudgment and the mental models that apply to finance or investing.
Yeah, it's interesting because I think most people think that they are being rational.
Yeah.
Whenever they look at those candlesticks. You know, and so it's very interesting because Charlie has a lot of ideas on what that means for a bunch of different people, and then how to operate in a world where people think they're being rational, but they're probably not.
Well, yeah. So the way that I look at when people are saying that they're looking at that and they think they're being rational, I think it's because they have a coherent reason, and they have coherent logic, but the assumptions are being
Like a confirmation bias almost.
Yes, but this I think is like right under there. It's almost like it's like they don't have. It's the assumptions. Like you can have a logical reason, but if your assumptions are off, then it can be you can arrive at an irrational conclusion.
Okay, yeah.
You know, which is just basically like logic 101. When you like take a class, like an early math class.
Specifically if you don't have all the information.
Right.
Yeah.
And what he does, and this is what I think, this is what we'll be getting into, is his 25, he had like 25 tendencies and biases.
Yes.
Around the psychology of human misjudgment.
Yep.
And I think this kind of plays into that, where, all right, you might not have all the information available, but are you aware of that when you're making a decision? Because again, the brain will come up with a reason no matter what.
Right.
And there's a lot of studies, the split brain studies, where, and we've talked about this on the podcast before. Yeah. It's like on split brain patients, they've done studies where they basically isolate both hemispheres of the brain. They expose one part of the brain to some information, and then they stimulate another part, the other half of the brain, and they see how it responds. And the part of the brain that comes up with reasons, the voice box of the brain, if you sever the brain, it literally will come up with reasons that are not connected with reality. You can show one half of the brain a car in front of you, and the rain will come down. And then you could ask the other part of the brain that's disconnected, talk to us about this car on this sunny day. And it'll start coming up with reasons, even though the other half of the brain was exposed to a car that's put in a raining situation. And so it just shows that our reasoning engine needs to be guided and refined and constantly vetted and checked, or else we'll arrive at conclusions and rationales that aren't rooted in reality.
100%.
Yeah.
Yep.
So
it's also like not going with the flow sometimes. There's a lot of things I feel like are like, you do this because like this is the party line, or like this is the way we always do things, or like this is tradition. And I think an important part is like digesting or dissecting that assumption of okay, it's just tradition, that's how we've always done things, and challenging it and be like, okay, how else could we do this? And that I think gets you to better results than just, you know, going with the status quo.
So let's get into this.
So we were at, just like in the timeline, I think we were at like him getting, was it married? Because I think there was a big life event there after he did get married with his first son.
Oh yeah.
That I wanted to just quickly touch on, because like his life wasn't all happy and exactly.
And rainbows.
His first wife, his first marriage, I was gonna say, he's married a couple Nancys, but the first Nancy, they had a couple of kids, and his first son had child like leukemia, and in those days it was a 100% death sentence. Today it's not, thankfully, through advancements in technology and Charlie's like actual donations to fund the research. But yeah, his firstborn child had that and did pass away at a young age, and Charlie would have to carry his son to the hospital. And then there's reports of him like being very strong in the hospital room, and then while they were, you know, operating on his son, would walk around the streets crying because it was just so hard for him to deal with that. And I think there are some of these biases or tendencies that we're going to go through that come from that idea of like, you know, we all have hardship, but don't ever get yourself down because there is so much other opportunity out there that, like, you know, things are still going to be positive. It's that optimistic mindset that I think Charlie held through a lot of his life, even though, you know, he almost went blind, you know, a bunch of things happened. That optimistic point of view, he carried with him throughout, you know, his entire life.
Well, it's so ironic because if you listen to him talk, he's sharp-tongued,
Yeah.
witty. He sounds like he's not optimistic, at least on the front of it. But when
Right.
you watch how he moves, there is a level of optimism in the sense that, okay, even through hardship, move forward.
Yeah.
And just move forward intelligently. I think people look at optimism or hear optimism and they think giggles, laughs, jump up and down. The way that I see optimism is you're in a lot of hardship, you experience a lot of hardship, and you still move forward.
It could just be that neutral, right? Where it's like, I'm in a hard spot, but I'm not going to self-pity myself. That might be enough optimism to keep you going forward. And you're right, it's not the sunshine and rainbows. It might just be like, I'm not going to have self-pity.
Well, like, and
I'm
if
gonna
I
keep
do,
going.
yeah. I mean, this is the situation, this is life, that
Exactly.
etc. Yeah.
Yeah, instead of just being like, oh, woe was me.
Yeah.
And then just like, because you're going to get stuck in that spot. But
Yeah, and there's also like ways forward too.
yeah.
Yeah. But we didn't actually. I was jumping right into his whole misjudgment stuff, but we didn't even talk about him reconnecting with Warren Buffett, and
That was after, yeah.
and how they like hit it off immediately, and this is while he ended up pursuing a career in law.
Yes.
And he very quickly realized, I can't get rich to the level that I want to get to just being a lawyer. I need to be in the ownership perspective.
Yeah, it's interesting when you're a lawyer for people that are building businesses. They are building assets that work for them, and you're almost like you're billing your time.
Yeah.
And so you're still at that level of like, my time is being exchanged for this value, when you're working for people that are like, no, my equity is working for me.
Yeah.
And so I think that was a big thing where it's like, oh, I need to do this. And also, like, working with a lot of big shot lawyers, they tend to try and like keep up with the other lawyers and keep up with their clients in terms of the fancy suits, the nice cars, the big jet. And that's not something that Charlie was ever like behind.
Yeah.
He hated keeping up with the Joneses.
Yeah. He's also said, like, they asked him about why he didn't pursue a life of luxury more, and he was just like, in almost all situations that I've seen, it never made anybody happy. It actually made people less happy.
Right.
When they started leaning into the luxuries and looking at that as their metric for success and happiness.
Yeah, I do know while he like was doing his lawyer thing, he went through a couple of real estate transactions.
Yeah.
That got him to his first $1 million.
Yeah.
Which in the 70s was a lot of money.
Yeah, he said that was the
60s.
hardest. That was the hardest. That was very hard to make that first $1 million.
Yeah, he did it through putting his own money up.
Yep.
So he was consulting with some real estate people and like, what should I do with this land? You know, should I sell it? Should I develop it? What should we do? And I think his advice was like, no, put apartments on that, and then you can like sell it afterwards with like all of this nice real estate. And they're like, yeah, Charlie, that's a really good idea. Why don't you put up some of your money? And he was like, okay. And he did that, and then now his skin is in the game, and he was able to do that.
So the investments game, the real estate, and the law was his 30s looks like, also coupled with personal tragedy.
Yep.
And after that is when he connected with Warren Buffett, and they hit it off. They didn't start right away.
Right.
Warren, I think, eventually convinced him to leave his law practice and the other things he was doing. He's like, look, man, I got the goods. You know,
Yeah.
come rock with me. What you're doing isn't working, or isn't going to get you where you want to get to. And, you know, fast forwarding, they eventually got together. And I think like we can get into a lot of the actual mechanics of his stuff.
Just
And, like,
quickly we can, yeah.
Well, I was gonna say in like follow-ups, because probably not going to get through all of his misjudgment stuff.
Oh, sure, that's right. That's right.
You can look up a lot of what he's done and like the specifics around his career. But I think like the main thing that is really intriguing to me is just his framework of
how he thinks,
and how he approaches, how much he values judgment. And again, I don't think that stuff is talked about enough in terms of like the psychology of human misjudgment. At the end of the day, business is about decision making. Business is about, that's really what it is. People present you with offers, and then you have to decide whether to take it or not. What are you going to give up or not? And then people that make better decisions tend to make more profitable decisions, and that tends to show up in the pocketbooks, especially over time.
Yes, I agree. That's
done, right?
Exactly. That's the real gold of his timeline, right? Is the fact that throughout all of these kind of steps in his life, he's able to get this framework together, which we're about to go into, these 25 tendencies that guided him in his decisions, that are hopefully going to guide our decisions to get the same results.
I hope so. So the first thing, kind of just jumping right into it, is he talks about incentives, and he's like, look, I finished at the top 5% in pretty much all of my endeavors, and I still undervalue the power of incentives. And this is basically around the whole idea of rewards and punishment.
Yep.
And that's just like the first thing that he talks about. And he talks about how incentives essentially shape behavior, and this is based off of a lot of psychological understandings of like conditioning, learning, some learnings from B.F. Skinner, who was, I believe, a behavioralist and did this stuff with Pavlov's.
Right.
No, not Pavlov. That was Pavlov.
Wasn't the prison experiment, was it?
No, that was the Zimbardo.
Yep. There's it's on the tip of my tongue here. I've heard that name before.
It'll come back.
Yeah, there was an antidote there that I heard Buffett say, because I know him and Charlie were super close, and Buffett was like, yeah, incentives matter, because if your incentives are misaligned, then obviously the actions are misaligned.
Yeah.
And an easy way to show that, it's really obvious. Like right now, the government shut down.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's like, if you just had a law that was like, hey, anytime the government shut down, nobody's eligible for election. Like if that was the case, you would never have another government shutdown. Yeah. Because they'd all be scared about not being able to be reelected.
Exactly.
And so you need to align your incentives to match, to then hopefully say, what actions are going to get me to that incentive?
Yeah, and to kind of dig a little bit further into that, they don't get punished. Like to your point, they don't get punished because they're still getting paid.
Yeah, exactly.
And so if there's no punishment, then their incentive,
keep it closed.
Exactly. It's like, that's fine. We'll just talk and parade all this stuff around, and without actually doing anything, because we're not affected by it.
It's ridiculous.
And that goes so deep right now in terms of the fallouts that we're seeing right now, and how clearly the incentive is misaligned. That's actually a really good example. He was using different things in the business context, in terms of getting different. That was like the FedEx. There was a FedEx use case. Yeah. Where he was talking about getting them to do certain things or finish their packages overnight and make sure that everything was good. But it's just like the incentives weren't there. Yeah. But that also goes, it's like just a basic part of life. That also goes with when you look at how you interact with customers, what are they actually incentivized to do, how you'd work with your employees, how you'd work with other stakeholders in the whole area. Is always asking, what are the incentives here? The way that he talks about this is as a checklist, as a mental checklist. When we're making a decision, we have to go through this and look at this stuff from all angles.
And something that I'm sure everyone's going to start realizing, that we realized, is that this intersection between psychology and the financial markets and his passions, right, that are financial related, everything is downstream from psychology. Yeah. It doesn't really matter what domain you're in. Everything is downstream from psychology, and a lot of these tendencies are in that psychology world. Yeah. Of like, how do you interact with people?
So we were talking about this a little bit earlier, is the economics is what he talks about specifically in psychology. What also goes through my mind is Rory Sutherland, the vice chair of Ogilvy and Mathers. Or Ogilvy right now. He talks a lot about how economics is like the enemy. There's a little bit of marketing in there too.
Right.
Also, a fun fact: Warren Buffett and Charlie Munger were big fans of David Ogilvy. They thought he was like a genius, and I think they're quoted as saying as much.
Okay.
Check out the David Ogilvy episode.
Yes.
But the idea of economics. So economics
being the enemy of
marketing is what he said, is because economics is rational. That's what Rory
marketing is
would
creative.
Say. Yeah, and he was like, it is rational. It misses out on stuff. Like they talk about equilibrium points, where demand equals supply, and it's the perfect amount that should be in the market, and all of these different rational, cold understandings of how the markets work. But when you take a step back and you realize that markets are comprised of buyers and sellers, and a buyer is a person and a seller is a person, and a seller is not rational and a buyer isn't rational, then it's like, okay, something went wrong through this
logic statement that you're trying to make.
But I actually, and I think I've said this on the podcast before, is that I actually do think that there is value in having a rational reference point. It doesn't mean that people are rational, but it allows us to know, okay, when somebody's making a decision, how far off from rationality are they?
That's interesting. I think and you can speak more of this, but I think every single economics class is taught through the lens of, okay, we're talking about a rational market.
Yeah.
Right? There's no, it's that school setting of like, forget all of the externalities. Here's a perfect problem for you. Solve it. So,
and I think, again, without the context, it can be very dangerous. If people actually go out into the world and they're like, okay, well, everybody here is rational.
That's why you never hire an MBA.
Yeah,
Not kidding.
I think a lot of people that we study on here would probably say the same thing.
Yeah.
Off of the merit of being an MBA, not the fact that they have. But,
of course. And that's, again, going back to the whole psychology of things and the marketing, it's like, is that gonna persuade me? The fact that you have an MBA?
Yeah.
Like, okay, that's a certain psychology that I have to then sift through on my end to make a rational decision.
Yeah. But the economics and psychology. So what I realized is, it's a reference point. Seen as a reference point, it can be powerful. Seen as the reality of the world, it can be very dangerous and misleading.
Oh yeah.
But then also, economics deals with scarcity. The allocation of scarce resources. That's what the whole study of the field is. How do we make decisions when there's unlimited demand and only a limited supply? And that demand is also driven by a lot of different things that don't always have rational reasons. He goes into some of that, but with that understanding, to me, economics is a subset of psychology because it's dealing with the scarcity problem of the mind and fulfilling wants. And so I'm like, okay, it is almost like a subsection of that. It's not always treated as that. More recently it has been, but not fully as a subset. It's just like, we have
still not. It's still not like a full subset.
Yeah, it's like
still an adjacent. Tangent. Yeah.
Like we'll acknowledge some of those ideas, but we're not going to completely look at it. Some really interesting readings though that have taken more of that into account are Thinking Fast and Slow. Where they talk about the brain and how the brain makes decisions, and that was done by Daniel Kahneman, who was a economics. He basically stood at that intersection of economics and psychology. Robert Cialdini,
another good one,
psychologist, but then ran like these experiments and talked about the idea of influence. So he basically stood at the intersection between psychology and influence and how to turn that into something that's actually that you can use in a business setting. And that's heavily what influenced Munger's paper. There's also a talk on that too, on his talk about the psychology of misjudgment, Charlie Munger.
Oh, really?
Yeah. But then there's like Predictably Irrational. That's another really good book on the brain and how it can be operationalized in a business setting. But yeah, the idea of like economics is like downstream of psychology, and so when we're making economic proclamations, we have to check that with what's going on in psychology because it's a product of it. Economics is a product of that.
Yeah, and that's interesting because to me it's a reference point to know that okay, these two things are playing together. But then it's also like the reality of the market is that they're always there. You're never gonna have a situation where you're not gonna have psychology in an economic decision.
Yeah, yeah,
So it's very interesting.
yeah. So we've been rambling. I've been rambling. Um,
Going down
let's
some of these other tendencies
yes,
that he
yes,
has, these
yes,
25
yes.
tendencies.
We're probably not going to go through all 25 here,
No,
but
no,
we'll
but some
jump
of
into
the
the super secret
yes,
podcast, and then we'll go through some more there.
absolutely.
And of course, we're going to be revisiting these, talking about these, and continuing as we need to. So, kind of rattling off the next two: liking and loving tendency, disliking and hating tendency. Those both are two sides of the same coin.
Yeah.
One is saying that we tend to favor things that we like, and we tend to disfavor things that we don't like, and we tend to, that alters our decision making. So when we're making a judgment or a decision, if we like the thing previously,
Yes.
then that's going to distort the way we look at it, and we're going to give it more favor when it's not really deserved.
Correct. Yeah. The past decisions influence your current decisions, no matter how much you think they don't.
And that stands for in groups. That stands for, or that holds true for like family.
Right.
That holds true for like teams. And a good impression that I had with somebody, if I feel like I like somebody, then I'm going to be more willing to work with them, even despite the message. And then if I don't like somebody, even if they have great information, I'll discount it.
Right.
So that's important to think about. Doubt avoidance tendency. That's interesting because that basically talks about our ability to, that basically talks about our tendency to not feel comfortable with doubt and to want to eliminate it as fast as we can.
Yep.
And so if that also plays into the idea of patience.
Yeah.
Which he often references, is that patience has caused people to lose more fortunes than is possible. People always feel the tendency to be doing things when in reality it's like we've done everything that we need to, just sit. Inconsistency avoidance tendency.
Yep.
People like to be seen as consistent.
Yes.
You know?
Yep. And these aren't just like economic rules, they're like psychology, and so psychology bleeds into your daily life. Just like we've been talking about, psychology is kind of at the root of a lot of things, kind of downstream.
Yeah.
And so these are things that you might hear us talk about and be like, oh wow, I can apply it to my partner, or I can apply it to my job, or you know, or you could also apply it to the economics and trading and stuff like that. So very wide aperture in terms of how to apply to some of the stuff.
Yeah. Like we look at business and we look at this stuff as being in an isolated space, but it's really just, it's decision making in a specific context, and that carries in different areas.
Yep.
Completely. So inconsistency avoidance tendency. Then we have curiosity tendency.
Ooh, our favorite.
Yeah. Stay curious. But that's the way that I interpret that, is it's the tendency to want to learn about things that we don't know.
Just to learn, just straight to learn. I feel like, because if you're learning about things, you're just learning.
And there's ways to also operationalize it, in the sense that if you're a business person and you're trying to build a market, it's insert curiosity. Don't put all the information out, put it out in a way that keeps people wanting to discover more information. Like curiosity to me is triggered by a lack of information.
Interesting. Lack of information or lack of knowledge?
I would say a lack of information.
Lack of information.
Yeah, I would say, in my mind, the reason why I say that is knowledge is, in my mind, more what I do with information.
Oh.
Yeah.
Okay. I was thinking like information would be like the answer was discovered by somebody, and knowledge is like I know the answer.
Yeah.
And so like if the information's out there, I just don't have it yet.
You're like,
I'm curious about that stuff. Yeah. And then when I have it, then becomes my knowledge.
Yeah. So there's like semantics there, but I think generally
makes sense.
it's the same idea, right?
Yeah,
So,
100%.
After that, we have the fairness tendency. We tend to want to view the world as fair and think things should be fair, which is hilarious because so many people will be like, that's not fair. And it's like, whoever said life was supposed to be fair?
Yeah, or like, what kind of world is it?
Yeah.
If it is fair.
Yeah, and fair doesn't always mean good for you. Sometimes fair doesn't mean that. But yeah, that's just a tendency of the brain, is that we try to make our decisions and we judge things based off of what we deem to be fair.
Seems kind of boring if everything was just fair.
Yeah.
Everything was just fair.
What, you want things to be unfair?
I don't want things to be unfair, but I want there to be some, I don't know, like.
Well, let's go into the next one right here,
Yeah,
because
go
this
for
plays
it.
a lot in there.
Yeah.
I said that, right? But they also say that there's the envy and jealousy tendency.
The worst one.
Yeah.
The only one of the envy, one of the 7 deadly sins you'll never have any fun with.
So these guys both said that it's not greed that drives the world, it's envy.
Yeah, it's the only one you won't have any fun with. All the other deadly sins you have a lot of fun with.
Yeah.
This one you won't.
It's so curious to me though, because when you think about the implications of it's not greed that drives the world, it's envy. When we talk about greedy, I hear the accusation echoed in my head of that person's greedy. They want so much. They want to take from everybody because they want to enrich themselves. They just wanted the money. They just wanted that. When I think about looking at the world through the envy as the root of all evil,
yeah,
it's kind of in the shadows. It's more, I want what that other person has. I'm jealous of that person.
Yeah.
And so I'll do whatever to get what that person has. Not necessarily because they have more, not necessarily because I want more. I just want it because they have it.
Because they have it, yeah.
And we're social animals. That's why this stuff is so important. We're also learning about ourselves in a broader context, not just in business. Business is just a playground that we're learning about how we act as people. But envy, that's a really powerful one. And that's something that
It is what drives the world.
you know?
Yeah, it's I've never ever wanted to keep up with the Joneses.
Yeah.
I know Charlie's the same way, but it's one of those things that's like, oh, they have it, I want it.
Yeah. And it's like specifically envy, I had to look it up just because I was like envy is not necessarily I want what that person has, so I'm gonna work my ass off and do that, and we can both have this.
No, I want it.
It's tinged, it's the desire tinged with resentment.
Yeah.
I don't like that person because they have what I don't have.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And it's like, if I can screw them over to have that, I'm going to.
Yeah. And that's the stuff where it's like, yeah. Okay, then we have reciprocation tendency. Really powerful one.
It's kind of the same thing with like the warm introduction, right? If you feel good about a first introduction, you're going to come back to that because you're going to want to, like, oh, he was nice to me, I'm going to give that back. And you know, that's going to kind of play itself out.
Yeah.
Versus if you have a really bad first impression, it's like, I don't really want to revisit that.
Yeah, well, that's also really in like the whole liking tendency too. And just to be clear, a lot of these overlap.
Of course,
so
it's 25 of them.
Yeah, they're not like isolated.
Right.
They're not isolated. But the reciprocation one, Robert Cialdini talks about this in his book Influence, where he talks about giving somebody a Coke before asking them for something.
Right.
Sam Waltman, it's so weird to say that. I was about to say Sam Altman. Talks about he didn't let his salespeople or some of his employees accept anything from salespeople, not even a handkerchief.
Right.
Because he didn't want them to be influenced by that need to reciprocate.
And give a deal.
But this also plays on the other side of it, where it's like when we think about a sale as a give, and we talk about this a lot, is that the history of the word sale and to sell is in giving. When you give, there's a natural inclination for somebody to want to reciprocate, especially when they deem the thing that you gave them as something of importance or value.
Yep, 100%.
And so that is literally tied to this. And
it's not always conscious either. Like if I give you a handkerchief or a Coke, like you're not thinking, oh, I got this, I'm gonna give them some. That's not.
Yeah.
For most people, there are some people that think that way. For most people, you're not thinking to yourself that logically or that rationally.
Yeah.
It's coming out in your actions because you were primed to do something.
Yeah.
But it's a subconscious action.
Yep. And a lot of these things are subconscious. In his lecture that he talks about, he's like, it's just the way that we are. Some of these can be used for insidious purposes, but it's either in every situation, it's better to know about them, so that way you can either protect yourself and you can just be aware of information.
The awareness is the big part for me.
Yeah.
It is like raising your level of awareness.
Yep.
Because if you don't, you're going to be like, oh, why is this happening to me? And not understand that there's other cogs that are like turning.
Shout out Dan Gilbert. Check out that episode too.
True.
Always be raising your level of awareness. All right, so then the next one that I think we can kind of talk, before we jump into the super secret on constants, is influence from mere association tendency. What do you think of when you hear that one?
Influence from mere association.
The brain has a
mirror
tendency
neurons.
to be influenced by the mere association of different items.
The mere association, like mirror, like a mirror.
Mirror.
Or the mirror.
M-E-R-E.
Okay, the mere association. So like branding.
Yeah.
The stuff that's like, okay, I'm gonna associate myself with this. That's kind of my brand.
Yeah.
And so that's gonna make me feel better, or it's gonna make me feel a certain way about the next topic that we're gonna discuss. Something that comes to mind for me is like Air Jordans. Okay, I see the player, I see the shoe.
Yeah.
Now when I'm going to say, okay, what's the shoe I'm gonna pick that's gonna make me jump the highest? Okay, maybe I pick Air Jordans because I have this mental model that's like, okay, that's gonna give me air.
Yeah. When in reality, it doesn't.
No, I'm too fat to jump anyway. So
I will not be dunking that. But that's the whole idea is the branding, the tendency to associate things together in either a positive or a negative way, and that also speaks to the whole liking, disliking. So if you intentionally brand something, then that can cause other people to like the thing that's been branded or dislike it. And when that brand's been there, it triggers this story of what's supposed to happen.
And it doesn't seem rational. It doesn't seem rational.
Because it doesn't have to be rational. It's usually not, really.
Well, and again,
like why? Like the example you gave. Why do we? The Michael Jordan example. It's like when you see it, you feel like I could be like Mike. But
that's a good one. Another example I have, which is very relevant to this medium, is the fact that YouTube creators, if their content is family friendly, or I should say, if their content is ad friendly, they're gonna see different success than a YouTube creator whose content is not ad friendly. Like, and that's just purely because the people who are advertising want ad friendly content. They don't care what the content's about though. And that's kind of, I feel like the important part is you could talk about literally anything. Yeah. And it could be ad adjacent or not. Right? Like literally any time. We could be talking about Charlie Munger and keep it ad friendly. We could be talking about Charlie Munger and keep it not ad friendly. Yeah. And that actually has a determination how YouTube says, okay, which advertisers are we going to put on this video, which then drive the ad revenue that you're going to get, you know? And so thinking about that stuff, it's like you're putting a video out here on the internet. Yeah. If people are going to attach ads to that, they want to make sure that the brand they're attaching to is going to be something that's not wildly outside the brand that their customers are going to have. Yeah. You know, so
no, there's a lot of power in
something
that.
To think about.
There's a lot of power in that. Another thing is like that we've talked about on here is the whole diamonds. Yes. Where De Beers and
there's no scarcity.
and like the campaigns that have been put out there around diamonds.
Yeah, diamonds don't have best friends.
Yeah, it's like, huh? But it's like that idea has been branded onto our brains. Even the whole engagement ring with diamonds. Yep. It's like there are rare stones, but they branded the idea of a diamond with an engagement ring, and within marriage, a life event that happens.
Right. Hopefully once, maybe more.
So often, so it's like that power of association cannot be understated, and all of these things again overlap, which is I think another thing to really pay attention to, because it's like when somebody likes something, they're more willing to move towards it because there's some type of reward in interacting with that thing. And so if I feel good, that might be a reward. If I feel bad, that might be a punishment. And so I tend to feel good about things that I like. And if you brand that thing that I like with your product, then I'm more willing to explore your product.
Most of the time, I feel like that is subconscious. Yeah. But nonetheless
automatic,
true.
Right?
Nonetheless true though.
Yeah. And so taking inventory of that is super powerful and allows us to make better judgments, better decisions, which is a big part of business in the first place. So
and that I think is a great spot, because this is all about psychology, business, economies, and how Charlie kind of gives us a framework
Yeah.
for how to think about these things. And so if you guys are interested in how business decisions are being made and how the psychology impacts that, I would highly recommend checking us out on Constance for the super secret Founders Drive, where we're going to go into this at even more depth.
Yep. Yeah.
And so where can they find that?
You can find that on Constance. On constance.com/c/Founders Drive. That's the Founders Drive community.
In the description below.
Yep.
And we'll be talking at more length and with more detail about how this psychology impacts business.
Yeah, we have 15 more to go through.
That's right.
And we'll add some more context as we go along. So
Catch
check
us
us
there.
out.
Peace.
Peace.